Now, what you're about to hear is the raw, unedited audio version of our reviews, which are these free-flowing stream of consciousness conversations that we like to do because we want to make sure that we have enough material that is either funny or interesting enough for our video reviews. So what that means for you is that you're going to be able to hear all of our mistakes, our retakes, points where we go extremely off topic, points where we experiment that come out of nowhere, funny things, unfunny things, a lot of vulgarities. These are pretty much conversations like you would have with your friends if you were hanging out, except maybe a little bit crazier. So now that I have you prepared, I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. Denzel Washington trying to save a subway train, even though it looks like he ate a subway train in this movie. That fool got fat.
Hey, man, he's old. And plus he's playing an older guy. I mean, he's always somebody who can I can be old and fat in this movie.
I mean,
but then I'll
motherfucker.
come back as the Hurricane 2 movies later.
There's not a lot of cut civil servants, generally speaking.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but every time they cut to him, he's sitting up there sitting on his ass, drinking Coke, eating chips, Pelham 1, Pelham 1, 2, 3,
See,
Pelham.
I think you're missing the obvious thing that happened here. I watched this movie, and there was one thing that was plainly obvious. John Travolta has eaten Samuel L. Jackson and is channeling him through this role because that dude doesn't end a sentence without adding motherfucker to it and yells like he's Samuel L. Jackson. He's like, get him on the phone, motherfucker. Hey, motherfucker. Excuse me, you dropped your change, motherfucker.
Oh, no. You can see the word motherfucker hitting people when he talks to them. I want my motherfucking money, motherfucking. And it's like,
Motherfucker.
Yeah, damn, man, them syllables hurt. Stop.
Plus, I think you need to remember the fact that Denzel Washington is a method actor. And more than likely, when he heard he was making a movie about a Subway, he just said, honey, I got to go eat Subway sandwiches every day to prepare for this role.
Yeah, well,
Damn.
Jared, hello. Come on, what's the problem? You could have.
Yeah, but Jared didn't eat the meatball sub.
Well, that's true.
Even Jared be looking at him like, damn, it's supposed to work the other way, not this. I don't know what the fuck you doing.
Well, they didn't tell me that.
I went to Subway every day. I didn't eat there.
Yeah.
No, Denzel, I mean, this is one of those roles that when you get to a certain age, you take for a reason. It's like, wait, you mean I'm going to play the Walter Matthau role? You mean I don't have to go to the gym for 6 months
exactly.
and I can do whatever the fuck I want? I will take it.
Oh, yeah. No, as you said, this is based on the 74 film, 1974, Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3.
One of your favorite movies, I believe.
It is absolutely one of my favorite movies. Walter Matthau. And in the Denzel Washington role in this, you have Robert Shaw, famous from Jaws, who was in the John Travolta scene from this. And that original movie is best known for probably Quentin Tarantino stealing the Mr. Blue, Mr. Gray, Mr. Pink, all that. Right, yeah. But they totally take that out of this film
because they had to. Because it's one of those things where everybody that wasn't in the know would walk out going, "Oh, they ripped off Quentin Tarantino," and it would just ring throughout the entire film, and it would keep reminding you.
It's too familiar with Reservoir Dogs at this point.
Yeah.
Wow, he just stole it.
Yeah, he stole it, but he stole it and owned it.
I mean, he co-opted it. It's his now.
And in the movie, I mean, it's really simple. I mean, it's a great story, but it's pretty straightforward. You got a dispatcher who, not having the greatest day, just trying to get through his work day. And then you have these mysterious guys who come out of nowhere and decide to take a train hostage for money. And that train happens to be Pelham 1, 2, 3. They explain in the movie why it's called that. I'm not going to explain it here.
It's John Travolta and a bunch of henchmen. Like the ones that the Joker wasn't able to grab. Like villains must put an ad in the paper, come hench and see the world from the underground. And if you live, you'll be rich when this is over with.
Except that it is explained in the film. I mean, they do go into where all these guys came from and how they came together. What's great about this film, what really works, is the first hour of it is very tight, it's very tense, and it's a ticking clock movie. They take the train and instantly they put guns to the heads of the hostages and say, look, you have an hour, get me the money, no excuses. And as the time ticks down, you realize that these guys are not playing around. Motherfucker! They are not playing around, and that is accentuated by the multiple uses of motherfucker. But as it starts ticking down, we have this character, Denzel Washington's Garber, who's trying to save these hostages in some way, shape, or form, or buy time while the mayor is trying to get money across the city. And it is fantastically tense. It is bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, they have 1 hour to do this, and they count down the movie how much time you have going, and they almost play it out in real time because it feels very short. And and that's the cool thing about the movie. By the time they get to the point where they should have that money, you've been counting down yourself, like, oh, somebody's about to get fucked.
Now
aside from Denzel Washington being fun to watch, he's fun to watch, and let's face it, anything. I'll go see any movie of Denzel Washington starring in it.
Preacher's Wife.
Sure, if I had to, but it's his redemption story that makes his character really interesting because he fucked up. He did something really bad. He's not willing to admit it, but come on. And this whole thing, part of his motivation is that, well, he's a good guy who's looking to be innocent again. And this all comes into it. There's some Catholic themes and yada yada gets brought into it. But it's exciting watching these two play off each other and play off kind of knowing each other without knowing each other, John Travolta and Denzel Washington. Yeah. And that's the biggest strength of the film is the interplay between those two characters.
The problem is that while the first two acts of this film are really strong, the third act becomes your typical cliche action chase movie, and it loses all the momentum. Yes. What worked about the original and what works in the first two acts here, I mean, this film is directed by Tony Scott and written by Brian Helgeland. Brian Helgeland, of course, did great stuff like L.A. Confidential, Man on Fire, Payback, and his his version of Payback is brilliant. And it is just so tight and taut, and it is two guys who can't see each other talking to one another and trying to manipulate one another and outplay one another verbally. And that is fascinating. But the minute we decide to turn into a chase movie and have people running through the subways after one another, it's like, oh, I've seen this movie, and this isn't as good as those movies.
No, see, that's what bothered me. It's like, how much cocaine does Ridley Scott do before he steps on the set? I'm sorry. Tony Scott do before he gets on the set or gets behind the editing board? Because
a lot.
Yeah,
because he can't sit still. He's got no attention span.
He is insane. I mean, there's just shit that cuts to nothing because he's hopped up on something.
That has nothing to do with drugs. It has to do with the fact that he's always, since the beginning of his career, been trying to make edgy films and work outside of the box, even if it doesn't work for everybody. And his last few films have been very. Now, this isn't as schizo as his other films are. It definitely has some stylistic choices that's like, oh yeah, that's definitely Tony Scott. But he doesn't give you any of that weird shaky stuff we saw in this mid-decade.
Except in the opening credits.
Well, he's got the opening credit sequence, but you can always forgive a credit sequence. There's nothing where you see Denzel Washington sitting there talking and all of a sudden it's blurring or there's two Denzel Washingtons. But you have to admit,
it is the Tony Scott moments of this film that don't work. And it's the parts that are just feeling the script and those two actors that do. Every time Tony Scott goes, you know what, this is boring, no one's going to sit still for this, we need to see a car like roll off a bridge and almost explode, that you go, come on, man, that didn't even need to be in there at all. I want you to get back to the two guys talking because it's that good.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that annoy me about Tony Scott, but the two things that annoy me about him, actually it's three, is that he just cuts way too fast. I swear that this guy, and directs kind of crazy too, I swear he has had a Red Bull, cocaine, and stuck his dick in a socket before he started directing or editing. And then the other thing is that you're right. He has to put a car chase combined with rock electronic music and everything. I would love to see him direct a period piece. I would love to see him direct a Jane Austen film because there's a car that's going to come out of somewhere.
Yeah, but it would end up like that Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Now, the thing is, I actually dug those aspects of the film because the concept is that they really have a short amount of time and they're in a situation where they have to get X amount of dollars from one side of the city to the other side of a city that is not easy to navigate at all.
But the film itself even apologizes for how dumb it is that all that is going on when the mayor goes, why didn't you guys get a helicopter? And they go,
because we needed to have a chase scene with some electronic music.
Exactly.
No, it's because they were going so quickly. They literally had to put this stuff together in an hour, and they say, they're at 37 minutes when they say, okay, give them the money, just get it to them. And so they're like, okay, well, let's put the cops and send them. And
you're being an apologist. That was just dumb. Come on.
No, I like they deliberately, they didn't write around it. There's comments about that throughout the whole thing is why didn't this happen? And everything is so slap happy. And even when one of the cops hits a car and flies off, all of a sudden everybody's like, fuck it, we got to get this there. And there's this whole kind of, we need to get this money across town. And you've got two guys sitting in a room talking, and those two guys, one of those guys trying to buy time for those other guys with the money.
Well, I mean, it's just funny because it really does feel like like you should be dancing to it. Like I felt like I was at a rave instead of watching it. Funny because it really does feel like like you should be dancing to it. Like I felt like I was at a rave instead of watching a chase scene because because speaking of cocaine and fucking Red Bull, slow down, man. It's like, but no, because it's like they'll have a quiet scene where Denzel Washington, he's standing next to John Turturro, and John Turturro's like, you're doing well. Just keep going. Keep buying time.
It diffuses the whole tempo of the thing. It totally does. It just feels like a dumb action movie whenever it does that, and the rest of it feels like a really tense, personality-driven film. And I'm like, oh, will you please drop that? Just get back to the guys.
I love his editing here, particularly where I fall in love with the editing is during the conversation sequences. There is not a spare second of wasted film in any of those dialogue scenes. It's bam, 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 and we move on to the next thing. And you get this really tense, it's happening in the moment, we have no time to stop and smell the roses kind of feel to this film. And that's where it really, that's where it loses it in the third act when it becomes an action film, because we've lost that great pacing. We lose those great one-offs where we don't relish the joke. The only time where they take any time whatsoever to kind of relish the joke is that helicopter moment that he mentioned, where why didn't we get a helicopter? And then we spend a few seconds as everybody kind of looks around the room and realizes that nobody thought of it.
Well, in the original is almost like a social satire. It's almost like a satire on just the state of the city of New York itself and its people. I mean, because even in a crisis like this, people are still cracking jokes. People are just still kind of being shitty to each other. And in this movie, they try to capture some of that humor, mainly through the mayor, played by James Gandolfini, who was actually pretty funny. Mm-hmm. And I like those moments where they do that. Even Denzel Washington, there's a lot of lines that he has that are funny. Denzel Washington's character in this movie is very funny. John Travolta is good, but he cannot keep his head still. He's like a bobblehead when he delivers those scenes.
No, absolutely.
Which is like early George Clooney?
Yeah, worse. I mean, it was a moment where he starts shaking his head and it just gets faster and faster. I thought it was going to explode.
It was like Vinnie Barbarino hopped up on coke. Travolta. It was just like,
yeah, no, it was crazy. Like, hey, Mr. Washington, I want my money today, motherfucker. Okay, but it's like,
I forgot to add in another motherfucker.
Oh, no, I did put a motherfucker in there.
No, another motherfucker.
Oh, motherfucker on top of that motherfucker. That's right.
He says motherfucker so often. You could make it a drinking game, but I would not recommend it because that's how sorority girls die.
I'm sure Samuel Jackson is going to send him a cease and desist. Like, dude, you're stealing my shit.
Yeah, no, hey, motherfucker, that's mine. Motherfucker. But
I think it's proof that white guys, no matter how hard we try, we just can't pull off the motherfucker.
It was okay because I kind of took him kind of as a redneck guy until they explain what his character's about, and it just does not fit. I want to explain what he's doing, what his motive is, and what he was before he got to this point in the movie. John Travolta's character, whose name is Ryder.
But it was an odd way to play the character, given that.
Well, see, okay, I only got to see the very beginning of it because we all went to that first screening where it fucked up, and you guys got to go to see the whole thing. But I just thought maybe he was pulling like a Jerry Reed in The Survivors, where he's like trying to pretend to be, some kind of dumb redneck character, but he actually wasn't.
And when he said it once, because he says motherfucker, and I'm like, I've been cussed out by rednecks that sound like that.
He's not as smart as they're like, oh, he's real smart. It's like, really? Because he pretty much gives away the big, most important thing for the cops not to find out in the first 20 seconds he's on the microphone, really, just by the way he speaks.
Oh, yeah, no. And they even explain that in a way. It's kind of like, this guy just does not give a shit. He can live or die. He just wants one thing, and if he doesn't get it, he's ready to die.
He's lost it. He's seeing red.
Yeah. Now, but the thing that got me with him, is that at the beginning of the movie, he's walking down the street and they're playing Jay-Z's, 99 Problems, and it's like, and all that combined, it's obvious that he's about to do something wrong. He's like, this guy is a bad guy. He might as well have been walking down, because he's walking down the street, not only with shades and a tattoo of a gun on his neck, but he's got that handlebar biker mustache. He's got all black on. I'm like, he might as well go down the street with a sandwich board that says, I'm a villain, a neon sign over his head saying, I'm about to do some crazy shit. It's like, who would not stop this guy just to
How about New Yorkers wouldn't stop that guy? Because New York is filled with those guys.
Yeah, this isn't Austin. Yeah, that guy walking around here, the security cameras would automatically
Think
put
about
on
it.
him.
In
But
Blade, Wesley Snipes is wearing all black leather, black shades, and a big ass samurai sword sticking out his back, walking down the street in the middle of the day,
And that was
nobody
my
stops him.
Because when you see a black guy walking down the street with a samurai
You don't
sword,
make eye
you
contact.
look the other way.
You don't say anything about that. But John Travolta, I mean, because John Travolta is a guy that would be, the thing that was missing is that he wasn't talking to himself. People like that in New York, they talk to themselves, so you know that they're not going to do shit. But him, he's too quiet. He's up to something.
What you brought up about his language and how all that works, that all makes sense when they explain what happens with him. You look at his background and you think it doesn't make sense, but what they explain happens in a 10-year period totally makes sense. Once you put it together and go, oh yeah, no, that totally works. A lot of this stuff really works when you sit down and think about it, and it holds together. And that's what makes me so angry about the third act, is that it really is just this boring, stupid chase stuff that doesn't belong in the film. If I remember the original correctly, the original doesn't end anywhere near like that. And
It's close. I mean, but I guess it's the subtlety of it, that because they do. That's the thing I love about the original, is that it was an action film. This is the original in 1974 was like Speed, which everybody's crazy about. When you feel that intenseness, because in this movie they are just wrecking cars, so they can wreck cars. Yeah. I mean, they there's somebody. It's almost like the set just pulled. They pushed a taxi cab out in the middle of nowhere just so they could hit it. It was like a taxi. It was like the cab driver said, "You know what? What am I supposed to be doing? Oh, I'm in a Tony Scott film. I'm supposed to drive out in front of this truck right here. Bam!
They've been on the road for 10 minutes at that point. I mean, come on. They managed to clear the road for the Ghostbusters in 2. I think, in this case,
Yes, and
they
when
would have
we're-
made sure no one was coming
and
out.
when we're looking for films that have authentic New York reality, we turn to Ghostbusters.
Man, you're just
Ghostbusters,
Captain diffusing
Blade.
the joke today. Jesus
No,
Christ.
in this movie, it really is, like I said, these arbitrary car chases. In the original, it was like when they hit a car for the purpose of hitting a car, so that you actually felt like they were being slowed down. Everything fell in place. This one, like you said, it's the third act that falls apart because it is just a straight action film. And I was ready not to like the movie, but I was really enjoying the exchange between. They are the heart of the movie. Even though they've and it's almost to a point where it's like overkill how they're the yin and yang, because John Travolta has an earring in the right ear, Denzel Washington has an earring in the left ear, and it's like, oh, them,
Does that get pointed out?
And Ivory.
It doesn't get pointed out, but you're looking at it, it's kind of like, oh, visually, come on, man. We don't need all that shit, all right? We get it. They're the opposites of each other, but they need each other.
Yeah, no, I mean, the supporting cast does what they're supposed to do. I mean, as you said, James Gandolfini is funny. John Turturro, I really was waiting for him to become annoying, and he never crosses that line. You're like, okay, actually, he does what he should do. He's efficient in this role. It's just those dumb action scenes that diffuse the whole thing, and the ending, which is like, you know what? That 20-minute ending should have been 5 minutes. The rest of the movie should have just been that really tense scenes in the transit station between the two. I don't know. Are we doing our ratings now? Because if that's the case, I'm going to say this is a matinee. I wish it was a full price, because there's so much I really loved, and yet it just so thoroughly peters out at points.
I am so right on the same page with Cyrus with this. I want this to be a full price. It should be for me. I'm one of the biggest Tony Scott fans on the planet. I'm a huge Brian Helgeland fan. I went into this really pumped. I was really satisfied the first 2 acts. And then I couldn't believe just how it unraveled. And it's like, no! And so it really is. It's a matinee film, and it's only a matinee to see, exactly as you guys said, to see those great exchanges between these two great actors.
Yeah, I hate to keep bringing this up, but after like the 5th motherfucker, just based on that alone, I was like, well, this is a matinee. And it continued to be a matinee through the whole film. The first half of the movie is not great, but it is good to see this exchange between a really insecure Denzel Washington and an overconfident John Travolta. That's the heart of the movie. Now, when you remove that heart of the movie, it enters the level of a subpar action film. And not to mention that there's this really gratuitous shootout at the end that brought the movie down a few notches more for me. If you've seen everything else, or if you want to waste some time and go see a movie at a theater where it's air conditioned, then this is what you go see.
Well, let me ask you guys this.
Wait, just one quick thing. So you're giving it a matinee based on the 5th motherfucker. Does that make it a motherfucking A?
A motherfucking A?
This makes it a motherfucking B, technically.
Yeah. So motherfucker.
Matinee, motherfucker. I don't have to explain this to you.
Oh, is that where you were going with that?
Matinee, motherfucker, motherfucking A.
Yeah, no, that was no connection.
Damn.
Wow.
Hey, these are the jokes, people.
I was ready to back you up, too.
These are the jokes.
Y'all don't see what he's saying? Wait, that's what
I know I saw you. You don't know what he's talking about. And I was like, if any joke needed Tony Scott to edit it, it's that joke right there. But yeah, Matinee.
Shit, if only we could edit this down.
And one thing I like to point and one thing I like to point out is, like, I love how the inside of the dispatch office where Denzel Washington is working is like the Enterprise.
Oh, it's so like the Enterprise.
It's like they have the latest hologram technology. It's like Denzel is sitting right next to Spock, who's also working on Subway.
Well, it makes you wonder. It's like, wait, if the office is that nice, why are the trains so shitty?
Because
that's what people actually have to ride in.
Because all the money spent on the office. That's why. Because all the money.
They had a vote, and they were the ones who got the vote on it.
Let me get this straight. What you guys are having a problem with is believing that the money spent by white collar workers in an office would go towards the white collar workers' office rather than the blue collar workers' environment.
Fair
is
enough.
that what you're saying?
Half the budget went to the Subway sandwiches that Denzel ate in this movie.
Have you ever been into an executive bat washroom? It's more expensive than a whole bay of cubicles.
I gotta say, though, I didn't have the same problem you did with John Travolta. I actually really liked him in this, and I almost never like John Travolta in anything anymore. Although, to be fair, I did keep expecting Nicolas Cage to show up and ask for his face back.
Oh, I'm so glad Nicolas Cage went off to do another movie while this happened.
Anything. I mean, put John Travolta. I mean, he's good in the movie. I like him in this film. I think he should have been given a neck brace, though.
I think we should put him back in the bubble.
I am with Cyrus, where I haven't liked him in anything, and in the 20 garbled minutes of this I got to see, I did really like him a lot.
Did you guys forget about Hairspray that he just did like 2 years ago?
I liked him okay in it.
Yeah, I liked
thought
him okay in it. I wasn't blown away by it. I mean, and I really like that movie a lot.
Yeah, me too.
But he's not my favorite thing.
Yeah, no,
either.
I mean, he's just, the problem with him is in the last few years, he's just chosen such shitty projects, like Wild
He's chosen
Hogs.
things that he himself has not been, he hasn't shined in.
No. Well, yeah, but he's, you can't polish a turd.
Yeah,
well, that's true.
And if you can, he's not the one who's going to be able to do it.
That's right.